Well, hi everybody and welcome to another piano review here at the Merriam Pianos YouTube channel. We have gone on to Amazon to try and find some of the most popular digital pianos of the season and find out whether they're really worth the bucks that they're asking, whether all of those 5-star reviews are actually legitimately given, or at least as far as what we can tell. And one of the first ones that we actually got delivered to us is one of these Casio SA-76s. Now, full confession, this is not actually the first time that I will have interacted with this instrument. In fact, my 2-year-old daughter got one of these as a gift from somebody else, and so I've listened to this thing wail away in the front living room for a couple of months now, but this is the first time I am actually taking it out of a box. So let's get this thing open and I will show you what it's all about. So the first thing that you should know is that this instrument does not come with a power adapter. It does support a power adapter, but that is an optional extra that you can buy from the Casio Corporation. Or actually, probably you can get that from a number of places. It's a 9.5 volt DC adapter, so as long as you've got the right pin polarity and the right adapter size, pretty much any universal DC adapter will do the trick. You don't actually have to get it from Casio. So what you can use it right out of the box with is 6 AA batteries, and that's what we're going to load this up with right now and get started on the SA-76. All ready to go. So the first thing about this Casio, it's super inexpensive. I mean, for something that even has remotely any kind of piano function to it, to get something under $100, and this is depending whether you're in the States or in Canada or anywhere, I mean, this is going to be falling sort of in the $50, $60 range, which is, I mean, you know, it's basically the price of an average toy, but yet it does several things that a lot of times musical toys just don't. And you take it for granted when you're playing on even $200, $300, $400 musical electronic instruments that things like this, in tune. Do you know how many baby and toddler musical toys I've come across, especially as a newer parent, where, you know, something like the middle C isn't even tuned properly? Now, on the one hand, you're like, well, does it really matter that much? But if you are trying to, you know, give some young kids musical toys that are going to start planting some of these, you know, tonal foundations in their brain, you want the pitches to be the same. This is like, is this asking too much? I don't think so. Anyway, the Casio is in tune. So, you know, normally I wouldn't even say that's a feature, but in this case, because of the price point, I'm going to actually call that a feature. The fact that C is actually a C, A is actually a 440, or I mean within a few cents. So that's a good thing. The instrument is very, very limited, and in fact, the audience who this is really targeting is actually quite narrow the more I think about it, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Talking about what this does, it's battery operated, or you can operate it with a DC adapter, 6 AA batteries as we mentioned at the beginning. So you've got a basic volume knob, that's great. The keys are not touch sensitive. The keys are also not full width or full depth by any means, but at least you do have, what is this, something like 3.5 octaves worth of keys to work with here. You have the option of 100 different tones to choose from, and some of these are surprisingly good, but most of them are fairly basic, which again you'd expect for the price point. And then you've got 10 songs that are in there and 50 patterns. And so we'll just go through a few of what each of these means. So basically the instrument has 3 modes that you can play in. You can just play in this kind of normal mode where you pick a sound and you've got the keys to play with, and there's obviously enough polyphony in here that you don't really easily run out, especially since this doesn't have the option of using it with a sustain pedal. You're really never going to need more than 10 polyphony. So even if this had 16 or whatever it happens to be, not a big deal. So first mode is this tone mode where you can play like a piano. Sorry, Brahms. Or, you know, so you can have some fun with it. Some of the other tones that you have to play with would be don't know where that came from. So these are all of the various piano tones that go up through 1 through 11, and then you get into church bells, like those are fairly convincing. That is not. And it goes in through bass and guitar, strings. You know, how do the strings sound? So you get the idea. Goes through all the way 100, where you've got synths, reeds, trumpet, brass, strings, guitar, bass, organ, and mallet instruments, and then the piano. So that's what you get out of tone mode. The second mode it has is pattern mode, and that's really just where you're getting the rhythms. So if we go to pattern, and then we're going to start those, then we've got 50 that we can play with. And of course, let's go. All kinds of things. Actually kind of makes for an interesting game. You just put on a random rhythm and then you think what's the first song that comes into your head that you're reminded of when you hear that, and try and play it. I don't know, maybe I'm literally the only person on the planet who would enjoy that kind of game, but maybe there's a board game out there waiting for a whole bunch of nerdy musicians. And then the third mode is the song bank mode. And this is one that had my toddler like jumping all over the place, and she very quickly figured out how to start and stop it. I don't think she knew yet how to actually manipulate through all the different songs, but it doesn't matter because there's one that's like all songs, and the whole thing just goes on repeat over and over and over again. And so that's this guy, and we'll get started here. And it just says AL, which obviously stands for all. And this thing just goes through all of it. So there's the Nutcracker, Little Brown Jug, those are the three modes that you get on the Casio SA-76. There is, I suppose, a fourth mode, which is you've got 5 rhythm triggers here for bass drum, snare, hi-hat, and then 2 kind of bongos. So who is this instrument for? Because I can tell you who it's not for. This doesn't have any MIDI output. So anyone looking for a super inexpensive and yet still kind of fun MIDI controller that has its own onboard sounds that you could sling into you know, a laptop or some kind of smartphone if you're going to be doing some writing on the road, forget it. Can't use it for that. It's also you know, good for toddlers in the sense that it can expose them to some really fun stuff, but I can tell you from experience that these keys are not the most durable. In fact, an 18-month-old's foot can nicely go through the top 2 white keys, again, speaking from personal experience, and virtually not fixable once it's busted. So you don't want to be giving this to an 18-month-old who doesn't really know how to treat you know, toys with a little bit of physical respect. So who does this serve well? Well, I think anyone who is wanting to just get a young learner excited and see whether there's some musical interest there at the most basic of levels. This would be a really interesting gift. It would be a really interesting toy to have them start interacting with a few minutes a day, just to see whether there's a spark of interest. And you know, it's hard to say what the appropriate age level here is, but I'm going to say anything kind of starting between the ages of 2 and 3, maybe up to about the maximum of 6 or 7, because it's not quite technical enough to keep sort of a grade 1 or a grade 2 interested. You can't hook it up to a phone. I mean, kids these days are now very, very used to highly complex apps on tablets and all that kind of stuff. But I think in that price range, this is a pretty darn good way to expose somebody to some basic musical ideas. And like I said, the fact that it's in tune is great for people who are aware that ear training can be an important, you know, early building block. It exposes them to some different rhythms, and it's super highly portable. Biggest downsides for me for what it is really is that there's no MIDI output, which would actually make this a really fun and interesting little controller for some people. You know, no sustain pedal, not a biggie given, you know, the fact that it's not touch sensitive. But other than that, I mean, for what you're getting for the money, this is probably one of the best musical exposure toys that I know of on the market. And that's really what I'm going to call this. It's my own label. It's a musical exposure, musical experimentation toy for a young learner. So there you have it. The Casio SA-76. A few really interesting features, but mostly something that's musically relevant as you know, a vehicle for exploration for kids aged, let's say, 2 to 7. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed it. If you're a parent out there and you are looking for exactly what I was just describing, hopefully you found this helpful. Let us know what you thought of the video in the comments, or if there are other models like this that you'd like to see a review of. We're always really excited to investigate virtually any musical instrument that has a key on it. Because we're just, you know, we love musical instruments. Doesn't matter how inexpensive, how expensive, who it's made for. We just love diving in and learning a little bit more about it. So thank you for watching. We will see you back for more next time. And if it's the first time you have been to the channel, please do subscribe. We really love the support, and we'd love to see you on our message boards and commenting, participating in our ever-growing community of music lovers. We'll see you later. My name's Stu Harrison. Take care for now.